Hey everyone, happy Monday and happy New Year. Today is January 1st. So Stephanie and I thought it would be fun to kind of just do a little breakdown of some of the new legislation that's kicking in throughout the country starting today. So I want to lead this off with California because California leads the woke pack with the most asinine legislation designed to further destroy the state. And Governor Newsom, aka the unannounced presidential candidate, as I like to refer to him, he recently posted on California's website, quote, California is more than just a state of dreamers. We're a state of doers, leading by example to create opportunity and advance and protect the rights of all Californians, end quote. Isn't that presidential, Stephanie?
Oh, 100%. Yeah. He's running.
Yeah, absolutely. But one of these new quote protection of rights in California that's starting today is a law designed to eliminate gender discrimination and stigmatizing stereotypes based on what's acceptable in terms of gender for toys. So as of today, any stores in California that have more than 500 employees will be fined if they don't have a gender-neutral toy section for kids 12 and under. And according to the wording of this legislation, it refers to childcare items, which would be any product designed or intended to facilitate sleep, relaxation, or the feeding of children, or to help children with sucking or teething. And stores, quote, must include a reasonable selection of items and toys for children that shall be displayed regardless of whether they have traditionally been marked for either boys or girls, because keeping similar items that are traditionally marketed for either boys or girls separated makes it more difficult for the consumer to compare the products and incorrectly implies their use by one gender is inappropriate, end quote.
Isn't it so funny how they can't even define a woman or a girl, but yet they put like laws in place that like are specifically saying like girl and boy. Like it's so stupid. This is so ridiculous.
Right. And when it's talking about like helping children with sucking and teething, like these are clearly, it's for kids 12 and under.
Yeah.
So we really need to like discriminate between or not discriminate between toys for fucking 6-month-old kids, apparently. And as reported by Fox News, failure to comply with this law will result in civil penalties that will be enforced through legal action by the state, either through the attorney general's office, the district attorney, or the city attorney, which to me is just absolutely insane. And then also in this LGBTQIA XYZ arena, as of today, all K through 12 public schools in California will have to provide at least one easily accessible all gender restroom for students. And this is for them to have safety and comfortability during school hours. And if you're planning to open a new business in California, you're going to be required to identify single-use restrooms as, quote, all gender restrooms. And the reason for this is to, quote, improve safety, fairness, and convenience, especially for LGBTQ individuals, women, parents, and caretakers, end quote. And yet another bill is requiring all California State University schools and all University of California schools to have campus systems in place that are fully capable of allowing current students, staff, or faculty to declare their chosen affirmed name, gender, or both name and gender.
Oh my gosh. Well, another reason I am so glad I don't live in California. That it's like at this point in time to still be doing this is ridiculous. And part of me like kind of hopes he does run for president so he has to get on a stage and explain all this bullshit that they're doing in California. But that's not all they're up to. So, according to CBS Sacramento, California legislators have approved regulations for water companies to begin purifying sewage water for people to drink. Like, I thought this was a joke at first. Like, I thought it was satire. No, this is a real thing that's happening in California. So the Division of Drinking Water Director, Darren Palamas, said, quote, there's always going to be three different levels of treatment provided. So if one fails, there's still two remaining in its place as backups to make sure that nothing goes untreated. It really will be the highest quality drinking water in the state when it's done. End quote. Like, I'm sorry. So, first, the Californians have to deal with sewage on the street thanks to the homeless problem. But
Mhm.
now they have to deal with it in their tap water. Like, this is so insane. And apparently, California is the second state because Colorado has already approved this. So it's just like, what?
Wait, isn't Colorado where all the spring water comes from?
Right? I know. I'm like, what is going on here? Like, Bill Gates has to be behind this or something because this is crazy. And apparently now it'll go to like the local water agencies and then they can vote on whether or not they want to implement this. But Gavin Newsom wants to increase recycled toilet water by 9% by 2030 and double it by 2040. Like, this is an actual goal that he put out there.
Did
I
he say what he's recycling it for?
drinking water. Like, and
God.
that's the thing. I could see if they wanted to use recycled wastewater for like sprinkler systems or even like agriculture, maybe, but not really. But like, no, straight up drinking water. I
Mm-mm.
mean, that
Mm.
just, that is a disaster waiting to happen. Like, what in the world is going on here?
So disgusting. Oh my
Good thing you
God.
moved from California.
Yeah, yet another reason I am glad that I left that state. What is it now, like 6 years ago? But since we're still on the California train here, I want to mention there's at least 20 states that are raising minimum wage for workers starting today. And I was kind of surprised, I guess, that the federal minimum wage is still $7.25 an hour. But you've got a lot of states that are raising it to like 16, $17. New York and California, I guess, are going to be 16. And Washington State is the highest. Okay, I was wrong with 17 because Washington State, I believe, is the highest. And their minimum wage is going to be 16.28 an hour. But in California, Newsom is taking this one step further because he's going to force all of the national fast food chains in California to pay their employees a minimum of $20 an hour. And this is going to take effect in April, even though the $16 minimum raise takes effect today. And I'm not necessarily opposed to raising minimum wage because inflation has skyrocketed the cost of living. But this move by Newsom is going to kill a shit ton of businesses in California because raising minimum wage doesn't mean the business owners can absorb the increased labor costs. And I was reading an article in Business Insider. They already reported that two major Pizza Hut franchise operators and their affiliates in California have filed documents informing the state that they're going to be laying off all their delivery drivers and they're going to be getting rid of delivery service, period. And this is going to take place in multiple locations throughout the state. So it'll result in more than 1,200 delivery drivers losing their jobs. And customers who want delivery are going to have to use a third party entity like DoorDash or Grubhub or Uber Eats. And so that means the customer is ultimately going to be paying more as well. So I don't necessarily call this a win. Do you?
No, and they did this last year in Florida. They raised it to $15 an hour, which was like a huge increase from where it was. But what ended up happening was all these fast food restaurants now, they have like kiosks where you order. So they got rid of their employees and then all of like the Walmarts and the Targets and like every store, they put in those like self-service checkouts.
Yeah.
So I don't think it's really helping the minimum wage worker. It's just replacing their job. And like the other thing is, you have someone like my mom who like worked her whole life and worked her way up and she's like, "Well, shit, I'm not making that much more than like the minimum wage people. Like how is that
Right.
fair?" So, I think that yes, businesses have to increase wages so people can like afford to live since the cost of goods have gone up, but it's always like minimum wage that they're targeting and it's just not feasible. It doesn't make sense for high school students or people just starting out in their career to be making as much as people like with a degree. Like it's ridiculous. $20 an hour to work at a fast food restaurant. Give me a break.
Yeah, especially if they're increasing the minimum wage to 16, that's a $4 jump an hour to
Mhm.
work at a fast food place. Where let's
Yeah.
say you went and worked at a clothing store in the mall or something, you're making way less money. I don't know.
Right. So it's like they're going to get rid of those jobs, and then the jobs they can't get rid of, who's going to pay for it? We are. They're going to raise their cost of goods. So that like hurts inflation even more.
Exactly. And then here's what else California is doing, because we are not
There's
done with
more. Oh my
California
God.
yet. There's at least one more. So as of today, approximately 707,000 illegal migrants between the ages of 26 and 49 will become eligible for Medi-Cal coverage at the cost of around $1.2 billion to California taxpayers. So I was reading an article in the Epic Times that reported nationwide, California will be the only state that offers free healthcare for low-income residents, regardless of their citizenship status. So apparently, and to me, surprisingly, considering the Biden administration's no border policies, but I guess federal programs like Medicaid currently exclude illegal migrants from healthcare for low-income residents. So not only are we like freely allowing mass illegal migration into the country, but now we're incentivizing it in California with free healthcare. Meanwhile, you have American citizens who can barely afford to keep themselves and their families afloat that often have to pay exorbitant fees for just basic medical coverage. And what's even more fucked is that reportedly millions of Californians may face being removed from receiving benefits because there's a new verification process in place to determine eligibility. And according to state records in California, over 930,000 people have already had their Medi-Cal terminated as of October of last year. And almost 90% of those terminations were due to procedural reasons like missing paperwork. And so I know Medi-Cal fraud is probably rampant in California, but I think there's also a lot of people who should legitimately be eligible for Medi-Cal. And now they're going to get fucked, but illegal migrants are going to get covered. Like, no questions asked. Like, it's so fucking backwards.
Yeah. Aren't people fed up at this point that we're taking better care of illegal migrants than our own people? And then we're sending money overseas to countries that have like government healthcare and college and everything else. And we don't have that here. Like, when is enough that people are going to like stand up to this? Because it's so maddening. And so you have like Illinois, which is another woke state, my hometown state, right? So we've touched on this before, but now it's official in Illinois that they passed law HB 3751 that allows non-citizens who are legally allowed to work in the United States will now be eligible to become police officers. And according to the Illinois Bar Association, quote, starting January 1st, Illinois landlords will be required to rent or sell property to undocumented migrants. The law adds immigration status as a protected class in the Illinois Human Rights Act. Like, I'm sorry, but this is bullshit. This is bullshit. I get that, these people need a place to live, but they're going to be taking these apartments then over American citizens. Like, what? This is just, it's so backwards.
Yeah, American citizens who will probably still have to provide all of the legal documentation that
Yeah,
landlords usually require.
right. Exactly. It's
Well,
crazy.
speaking of police officers, I want to jump to New Jersey real quick because there is new legislation taking effect that is going to require police officers to hold a valid professional license. And it sounds well and good, but this is a license that they're going to have to renew every 3 years. And it can be revoked for a variety of offenses, like if you get a DUI or reckless driving. And according to Governor Murphy, this new policing license program is being put in place to help build trust between the police and the state's Black and Brown communities. So, on one hand, I'm okay with some of this. And on the other, like, I'm really not. Why are we only doing this for law enforcement? Why aren't you making people in other professions renew their license every 3 years? But I won't get on my tangent there. Jumping back to Illinois, Illinois is also going to be the first state in the nation to outlaw book bans. So this legislation also goes into effect today. And what this means is that the Secretary of State's office can deny grant funding to any public schools or libraries that ban books for partisan or doctrinal reasons. So this all has to do with what's been happening over the last year or so with states banning inappropriate LGBTQ books over the past year. And once again, we have like the guise of democracy in air quotes as the reason for the ban on banning books. So according to Illinois lawmakers, they believe that, quote, materials should not be excluded because of the origin, background, or views of those contributing to their creation, end quote. And the Secretary of State has applauded this move by calling it a landmark law that is a triumph for our democracy, a win for First Amendment rights, and a great victory for future generations.
Yeah, that's crazy. And I've seen some of those books that are like on the, list, and they are absolutely inappropriate. They show things that, should be in like an adult, shop type of thing. So just so crazy. Well, then we have another woke state, Michigan, that's expanding its LGBTQ protections in the state's civil rights law. So they're permanently outlawing discrimination on the basis of sexual orientation or gender identity in the state. So no more discriminating against the people with pronouns in their bio, which I've heard a lot of human resource departments actually try to avoid those people because they feel like that's going to be one big giant lawsuit or issue that they're going to cause. And then Michigan's also going to become one of 5 states that require utility providers to transition to 100% carbon-free energy generation by 2040. And this is under legislation that was signed by Governor Gretchen Whitmer. And the state also set a goal for utilities to generate 50% of their energy from renewable sources by 2030. Which is a significant leap from the current, which is 12%. And so it's like they set these goals that are just unreasonable, completely unreasonable. And I guarantee you Whitmer has like no plan for how this is going to happen. And I'm pretty sure that, everyone that lives there can expect significant price increases in their energy because they're going to have to put all this infrastructure in to meet this goal.
Isn't Michigan, I've never been there. Isn't Michigan one of the states that experiences like fairly harsh winters?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. Especially northern Michigan. It's basically like Canada, it's freezing.
Okay. Yeah. Well, good luck with that. Good luck with your electrical bills.
Right?
Yeah. Well, one of our other favorite governors, Kathy Hochul in New York, she just signed a somewhat controversial bill into law that is designed to change local election years to even numbered years. Apparently, they've all been odd numbered years, but she's changing it because even numbered years are when Democrats typically have the highest voter turnout because that's when the state and federal position elections are held. So according to Hochul and her band of Dems, this will, quote, improve democracy. Again, there's a fucking word. This will improve democracy in New York by increasing voter participation and decreasing confusion about which offices are on the ballot, end quote. And so, as most Republicans are arguing, this is clearly a political ploy to win more elections. And New York is also, this one made me laugh, instituting a new law requiring cosmetologists and hairstylists to complete basic training for all hair types and textures as a condition of getting their license. So that means they have to learn various curl and wave patterns and varying hair strand thickness because state lawmakers want to, quote, close the knowledge gap that disproportionately affects women and girls of color with textured and diverse hair, end quote.
I'm sure these lawmakers know so much about hair and cosmetology.
It's basically saying like you can't choose who you want your clients to be, right?
Right. Yeah. I know. It's typical New York. And I don't trust them messing around with anything having to do with voting. Like that just is a red flag right there. Well, you have the White House that's calling Governor Abbott, his new law in Texas, they're calling it, quote, incredibly extreme. And I guess this law allows local police officials to arrest anyone expected of crossing the border illegally. which I mean, hello, like we need all the help we can get, right? Like it's crazy there with the border crossings. But this would also give judges the power to order illegal migrants to leave the country.
Okay,
And
I think this is fantastic, but how the fuck are they going to enforce this? Like, Border Patrol can't even keep migrants. They're flooding in thousands and thousands by the day. How are they possibly going to arrest all these people? Where are they going to put them?
right, exactly. And then like, are they actually going to deport them when they go back
Mhm.
towards the border? No, no,
Right.
it's not going to happen. And then I know this is out of the US, but I have to mention Canada's new law. So this doesn't take effect until March 14th, but this is going to allow the Medical Assistance in Dying program to now include people who are solely suffering from mental illness. So, according to Fox News, quote, Bill C7, which passed in March 2021, acknowledged that further consultation and deliberation are required to determine whether it's appropriate, and if so, how to provide medical assistance in dying to persons whose sole underlying medical condition is a mental illness, end quote. So my question is, when the hell is it ever appropriate for someone to be euthanized who only has a mental illness and has no, physical terminal diagnosis? So like basically what this is saying is like, let's say there's someone who's severely depressed and suicidal, this could allow them to be euthanized? Like what the fuck?
But
Isn't that
don't
extreme?
it is, but don't you see this like leading into Hochul, Holchel, whatever the fuck her name is, her quarantine camp
Yeah,
idea?
it's terrifying.
Yeah.
It's terrifying. Like, I mean, I could see if someone is terminally ill and I mean they're on like their last limb and like, okay, maybe you want to argue that, but really someone that just has a mental health disorder and you're gonna like be like, oh yeah, you could die. Sure. I mean, this
Yeah.
is insane. Absolutely crazy. So, and we know too, whatever's happening in Canada, like we're the next step. Like it'll happen
Yeah.
here. They're always a little bit ahead, a little more liberal, but they'll try to pull the same shit here. So crazy. So
Yeah.
that's
So
that's what's
yeah.
new. 2024, here we come. So yeah, we'll keep everyone updated on that. Hopefully we'll have some good news at some point moving forward. But thank you guys so much for tuning in. And Happy New Year.